Some games seem doomed from day one. All it took was the first round of reviews for everyone to turn away, low scores, bugs, unfair comparisons, but anyone who gave these titles a real chance found something completely different: addictive worlds, stories that grow on you, and mechanics that might be imperfect but are still captivating. This list is about games critics hated, yet anyone who actually played them knows they're worth every minute, maybe even more than the critics' darlings. So tell me, what was the last game that everyone trashed but totally won you over? Drop your answer in the comments, and of course, if you enjoy the content, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Let's dive in. When Days Gone launched, it got drenched in criticism. Early reviewers complained about the slow start, the bugs, and some repetitive mechanics. From a distance, it looked like just another zombie game lost in the crowd, and in the opening hours, that's exactly how it feels. But those who pushed on found an addiction that only grows stronger. There's something magical about roaring down empty highways on that bike. The wind, the engine, the tension of running into a horde at any moment. It all hits hard. Melee fights are dirty and brutal, and wiping out an enemy camp with real strategy is pure satisfaction. Each mission pulls you deeper until you're neck deep before you know it. This game isn't out to impress, it's out to hook. And hook it does. The story starts simple, but suddenly ramps up with twists, pain, and raw emotion. Characters evolve, and it's impossible not to care. New regions only feed the urge to keep riding. It's one of those just one more job games, and next thing you know, the sun's coming up. Days Gone isn't for snap judgments, it's for players who love soaking in a dangerous world, exploring at their own pace, and sinking into chaos. It may not reinvent the wheel, but it's got soul, tension, and flat-out fun, making it one of the most addictive titles of the generation. When Mass Effect Andromeda dropped, the internet pounced. Awkward facial animations became memes, bugs shattered immersion, and everyone compared it to the original trilogy. Expectations crashed hard. But once the dust settled, many players who dove in without that baggage discovered something else: a big, adventurous, and freewheeling space RPG. Planet exploration is a blast. Huge maps packed with activities, each giving you that pioneer vibe of settling a new galaxy. The combat is more mobile than ever thanks to the jetpack and flashy powers, turning every fight into a dynamic set piece. Little by little, its strengths shine through. It's lighter and less self-serious, yet still compelling. Characters take a while to click, but they get their moments. Even with a simpler narrative, curiosity about the Andromeda galaxy keeps you moving forward. Post-launch patches polish the rough edges, and today the game feels much smoother. It may not sit on the franchise's throne, but there's plenty here for fans of fast-paced space RPGs. Andromeda struggled under a legendary name, yet that doesn't erase its qualities. If you crave alien worlds, stylish combat, and crew building, give it a shot. Fun counts, and this one delivers. Expectations were sky high for the Callisto Protocol. With devs from Dead Space on board, it promised the next great space horror ride. Instead, launch woes, bugs, uneven performance, clunky gameplay sparked a backlash, hype turned to frustration, but those who pushed past the opening hours uncovered a gem buried in the grime. Tension never lets up: dark corridors, grotesque enemies, and savage melee combat. Every swing carries brutal weight, death animations are delightfully gruesome, and the visuals? Top-tier horrific. It may not reinvent survival horror, but it serves non-stop action and dread. The story unspools slowly, mixing sci-fi, corporate paranoia, and twisted experiments. Even with a few cliches, the mystery holds you, begging to be solved. The game isn't afraid to be tense, weird, and aggressive, and when all the pieces click, it's a feast for anyone who loves their horror bloody and claustrophobic. The Callisto Protocol owns its flaws, yet delivers one of the most nerve-shredding rides in years. Ghostwire Tokyo split opinions right away. Some found the combat odd, enemies repetitive, and the open world sparse. First-person spellcasting felt strange, and despite striking visuals, it lacked punch for action fans. That's because it never aimed to be a straight brawler, it took another path. The city itself steals the show. Wandering a silent, fog-shrouded Tokyo packed with supernatural details creates a vibe unlike anything else. Isolation hangs in the air, and every alley hides the unexpected. Combat grows smoother over time, shining when fights demand mobility, defense, and clever spell use. A story of grief, spirituality, and Japanese folklore works beautifully for anyone on its wavelength. Touching moments, cool side quests, and bizarre yokai lend the game a special charm. It's not frenetic, it's intriguing. A title with a strong identity that moves at its own pace. Ghostwire Tokyo began as an odd duck but wins hearts with style, atmosphere, and originality. it stands out precisely because it refuses to follow the crowd. When Godfall was revealed, it looked like the next big thing: stunning visuals, loot-driven combat, flashy hack-and-slash action. At launch, critics pounced: repetitive, shallow, generic story, sparking heavy disappointment. Many bounced without giving it a real shot. Those who stayed, though, found a rhythmically addictive, satisfyingly crunchy brawler. Yes, movement is hefty, but that gives every swing impact. Each weapon drastically changes your playstyle, and mastering them is key. Dodge, parry, strike, timing is everything. Deeper in, combat turns strategic and rewarding, and once it clicks, you don't want to stop. Valor plates, those gleaming armor sets, keep builds fresh, and chasing top-tier foes becomes a habit. It's not the deepest game around, but it delivers exactly what it promises: stylish action, loot galore, and eye-candy environments. Perfect for anyone wanting slick, over-the-top combat without overthinking things. Godfall fell short of its initial hype, yet it nails a straightforward, energetic gameplay loop, and sometimes that's all you need. Resident Evil 6 shook the franchise to its core. It pushed horror to the sidelines and went all in on non-stop action. Explosive scenes, wild chases, mutant enemies, and bullets flying everywhere. Anyone hoping for that classic tense atmosphere wasn't thrilled, but over time many came around. This game is pure adrenaline, and if you go along for the ride, it's a blast. There are 4 different campaigns, each with its own tone and pace. That adds variety, even if the story doesn't always make much sense. The combat is full-on dodges, melee attacks, cover system, and tons of mobility. You can knock enemies down with style, dive to the ground, throw kicks. It's all very blockbuster. And if you play with a friend, it gets even better. The co-op mode is one of the most fun in the series, filled with insane situations to tackle as a duo. Sure, the action is over the top, but there are also intense moments and memorable bosses. It's a loud, gutsy spectacle that wasn't afraid to take risks. Resident Evil 6 missed the mark trying to please the wrong crowd, but nailed it for those who just wanted pure chaotic action without breaks. Thymesia didn't have the smoothest launch. People called it a rushed Bloodborne clone and slammed its combat, short maps, and lack of polish. But those who gave it a shot discovered something way more interesting than expected. Fast movement, tight parries, and an aggressive combat style deliver an adrenaline rush few games manage. Every fight feels like a bloody dance. Fast, violent, and risky. The Plague weapon system lets you steal enemy skills and adds real variety and strategy. You've got to be fast, learn patterns, and punish without hesitation. Every hit feels satisfying, and the speed of combat makes it addictive. It takes time and effort to master, but once everything clicks, it's hard to put the controller down. Gameplay is what keeps it all running. The setting feels like a Renaissance nightmare, full of rot, alchemy, and twisted experiments. The story unfolds in fragments with a dark, oppressive tone. If you enjoy hidden lore and theories, there's a lot to dive into. It's short, yes, but straight to the point, challenging combat, and a tense vibe from start to finish. May look generic at first glance, but there's a heartbeat pulsing under all that blood and shadow. It's not revolutionary, but it's got soul. And if you love games that test your reflexes, this one might hit harder than you'd expect. Forspoken launched under massive expectations. It was supposed to be the big next-gen RPG, but ended up stumbling across the board. Critics tore into the dialogue, the forced writing, and a plot that felt aimless. Performance issues like frame drops and bugs didn't help either. But beneath all that, there's a fun core that many overlooked. Movement is its biggest strength. Running, jumping, and gliding across the world with magic parkour is just plain addictive. Traversing the map feels fast, smooth, and thrilling, making even basic missions fun. And if you dig into the combat, there's creative magic builds and flashy battles to enjoy. That's the part that really hooks you. The story takes time to build, but once things start clicking, interest kicks in. The world feels empty at first, but there are secrets everywhere. And even with a predictable narrative, there are genuinely powerful moments. The sarcastic tone of the main character can be annoying early on, but it grows on you. Her relationship with the world and with you evolves over time. Forspoken tried to be more than it needed to be, but once you let go of what it promised and focus on what it actually delivers, there's plenty of fun to be had. Speed, combat, and magic for those who like their action with some flair. Redfall was one of the year's biggest letdowns, a respected studio, a strong trailer, and a bold concept. But at launch, it felt unfinished, bad AI, bugs, and a world too big for its own good. The backlash was intense, and many people didn't even bother trying it. But after some updates and tweaks, a few strengths started to peek through, even if they're still a bit buried. The vampire combat, though inconsistent early on, has moments of real chaos and tension. Playing solo or in co-op changes the whole vibe, and the special powers add flavor to firefights. Each character brings a unique style, and once you figure out how to mix abilities, it all starts to click. It really shines in casual co-op sessions. The city has cool little corners with side stories and spots that make you want to explore. There's something fun about clearing out a neighborhood, setting up a base, and saving a civilian. Even with the technical issues, there's some heart in the world, and recent updates have been slowly polishing things. It still has a way to go, but it's not the total disaster people said it was. Redfall crumbled under pressure it didn't need to carry. But if you meet it where it is now, there's fun to be had, a stylish shooter with supernatural flair and room to grow. Death Stranding was one of the most divisive games in recent memory. People called it a delivery simulator, slammed its slow pace, long walks, and confusing plot. Anyone expecting non-stop action was thrown off by its focus on solitude and connection. But those who pushed past the doubt found something truly one of a kind. A game with raw emotion and mechanics no one dared copy. Traversal is the soul of the game. Every mountain, valley, and river needs planning, balance, and patience. It's not just about reaching your goal, it's about conquering the journey. The realistic physics, the gear, the terrain challenges, they create a totally different kind of tension. And when you finally plot a working route, that sense of victory is real. Nothing comes easy. The story mixes sci-fi with heavy human emotion loss, isolation, purpose. The ruined world slowly reveals its secrets, and the characters gain depth. There are slow stretches, but also moments that hit hard, and the player connection system adds an emotional twist you don't expect. It changes everything. Just knowing you're not alone matters. Death Stranding isn't about gunfights, it's about endurance. It's weird, bold, and completely outside the box. It might start confusing, but once it clicks, it grabs you in a way few games can. Alien's Fireteam Elite launched quietly, but people quickly compared it to Left 4 Dead, and that set the bar high, maybe too high. Critics called it repetitive, complained about weak AI and limited content. But for anyone just looking for fast-paced, trigger-happy fun, it hit the spot. It's a no-frills co-op shooter with action front and center. Pick your class, gear up, and drop into missions crawling with xenomorphs. It's fast, frantic, and every level is a test of survival. Enemy variety forces you to adapt on the fly, and when the chaos erupts, your team's coordination is everything. It's simple, sure, but tight, satisfying, and smooth. The atmosphere stays true to the franchise: dark corridors, metal clanging, and threats around every corner. Guns feel punchy, enemy designs are faithful, and there's plenty of upgrades and builds to mess with. Story takes a back seat, but the gameplay loop is just plain fun. Playing with friends amps it up, but even solo, it's a good time. Alien's Fireteam Elite doesn't reinvent anything, but it delivers solid, non-stop action, perfect for when you just want to shut your brain off and shoot. Simple, straightforward, and honest about what it is. Terminator Resistance seemed doomed from the start. Dated visuals, small budget, and little media buzz. But once you play, you realize there's a deep respect for the Terminator universe here. It gets the franchise better than most recent films, and it builds a tense, lonely journey full of heart. The world feels brutal. You're always being hunted. Combat can be intense, but there's also stealth, exploration, and choices. The RPG elements are simple but smart. Futuristic weapons, solid characters, and a pacing that ramps up naturally. The campaign pulls you in slowly, without relying on constant explosions. The atmosphere is grimy, melancholic, and packed with details fans will love. The machines feel threatening, and survival actually takes work. Music, dialogue, and missions all build this desperate tone of resistance, and even with the technical flaws, the soul of the game shines through. You can feel the passion behind it, something rare these days. Terminator Resistance is a love letter to the franchise. Simple, yes, but honest and made with care. If you're a fan, you'll spot that right away. When Mad Max launched, not many people took it seriously. Critics called it generic, with an empty map and repetitive missions, but a lot of people tried it out of curiosity and couldn't stop playing. What seemed like just another open-world game turned out to be one of the most fun and addictive titles of that generation. Brutal car chases, intense combat, and a desert that feels alive. The gameplay revolves around your car. Everything depends on it. Fighting, exploring, upgrading, progressing. You feel every crash, every harpoon hit, and the battles against gangs feel straight out of an action movie. On foot, melee combat is raw, direct, and effective. Each upgrade makes you stronger and more savage. The world might feel empty at first, but that's the point. The loneliness of the desert, hidden enemies, small hideouts, they all create an unpredictable atmosphere. The upgrade system is addictive: clearing zones, building outposts, upgrading your car, scavenging for scrap, and the freedom to approach things your way keeps it fresh. Nothing beats owning the wasteland with your beast on wheels. Mad Max is about survival, speed, and brutality. It's one of those games you start with low expectations and end up missing when it's over. Assassin's Creed Unity had everything going for it. Revolutionary Paris, stunning graphics, a revamped combat system, but the launch was a mess. Bugs, performance issues, and faceless NPCs went viral. A lot of people gave up right away, but after patches and polish, it became one of the most complete entries in the franchise. The city is dense, alive, and vertical. Every street has stories, every rooftop is a shortcut, and the scale is impressive. Parkour is smoother, more natural. Main missions offer multiple approaches, and even though combat is slower, it demands precision. Wandering through the alleys and chasing side objectives feels genuinely rewarding. The story isn't the most memorable in the series, but it has strong moments. What truly shines is the atmosphere: revolt, poverty, conspiracies, tension on every corner. The interiors, the cathedrals, the crowds, everything pulls you into that historical chaos. And with co-op, the game gets an extra layer of fun. Assassin's Creed Unity messed up at launch, but nailed almost everything afterward. Today, it's a hidden gem waiting for the right players to rediscover it. Watch Dogs had massive hype behind it, stunning E3 footage, promises of open-world hacking innovation, but it launched with visual downgrades and a flat storyline. The disappointment was instant. But if you push expectations aside, what you get is a fun sandbox with unique mechanics and tons of possibilities. No menus needed to hack, just a button press to manipulate the world. Controlling traffic, sabotaging enemies, turning the environment into a weapon, it's all fast and intuitive. Hopping between cameras, setting traps, or escaping using electric roadblocks becomes second nature and super satisfying. The progression system pushes you to explore and master every skill. Chicago doesn't feel empty at all. There are side missions, contracts, chases, and all kinds of confrontations. Combat works well, with solid cover mechanics and a decent weapon variety. Even if the story falls short, the gameplay easily carries the experience. It's got rhythm, creativity, and gives you the freedom to do things your way. Watch Dogs didn't deliver on all its promises, but what it did deliver was fun, stylish, and ahead of its time. Battlefront 2 was a scandal before it even launched. Loot boxes and a locked progression system triggered major backlash. It felt like the love for Star Wars had been traded for greed. But after tons of criticism, EA backed off and the game got a second chance. What was once hated became a cult favorite for many fans. Combat is pure controlled chaos. Massive battles, ships, heroes, special troops, everything happening at once. You feel every blaster shot and the pressure of being surrounded. Matches are fast-paced but allow for strategy. And when you step in as a Jedi or Sith, the whole game shifts. Content grew over time. New maps, characters, modes, and graphical improvements gave it new life. The single-player campaign, though short, delivers impactful moments and ties into the saga well. Balance came with time, and playing it today, it's hard to believe it was ever that hated. Battlefront 2 proved that with fixes and respect for the fans, it's possible to turn things around. Now, it's a guaranteed good time in any galaxy. Quantum Break confused a lot of people at launch. Mixing a game with a live-action series split opinions, and the slow opening turned off those expecting instant action. Some even found the story too drawn out, but with time, the game revealed itself. A bold sci-fi with great ideas, stylish presentation, and surprisingly good gameplay. Its strength lies in time powers. Freezing enemies, creating shields, slowing everything down, suddenly you're in the eye of the storm. Every fight becomes a cinematic puzzle that rewards fast reflexes and creativity. Movement is fluid and the gunplay feels heavy. With each upgrade, you feel more and more unstoppable. The story takes a while to pick up, but pays off with a plot about time, control, and manipulation. Characters are well developed and there are plot twists worth the wait. The live-action episodes flesh out the universe even if they're not for everyone. But taken as a whole, the full package works better than most gave it credit for. Quantum Break is a bold move, full of creative risk, and if you give it a real chance, you'll find a unique game that deserved way more love. Ryse was met with a lot of skepticism. The graphics looked stunning, and people expected a groundbreaking game, but its simple combat and linear progression made many turn up their noses. Some even called it just a pretty tech demo for Xbox. But those who pushed past the criticism found a game full of rhythm, style, and a whole lot of blood. You feel every hit. Swords tear through armor, shields crush bones, and executions are brutal. The combat is straightforward, no gimmicks, but it's weighty and rewarding. Every fight is precisely choreographed, and the violence has a theatrical rhythm. It's the kind of game where every finisher puts a smile on your face. The story is simple but gets the job done. A journey of revenge, honor, and battles against betrayal and corruption. The environments are stunning. Rome, beaches, forests, fortresses, each one feels sculpted with care. Even if it doesn't reinvent the genre, it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it delivers that with style. Ryse wasn't made to please everyone, but if what you want is cinematic brawling and stylish brutality, it's worth every second. Binary Domain dropped almost unnoticed. Most people took one look, saw a generic cover shooter, and moved on. But those who played it found a story full of surprises and electrifying battles against machines straight out of classic sci-fi. It had more soul than anyone expected, and the deeper you go, the more you feel it. The gameplay is straightforward, with intense gunfights and massive boss fights, but there's something unique, a voice command system and teammate reactions that shift based on your choices. It builds a real connection with your squad. Enemies are all robots, and they fall apart realistically, which makes every shootout even more satisfying. What starts as a simple military conflict quickly turns into something much deeper. It dives into ethical questions about AI, identity, and what it means to be human. The tone gets heavier with each mission, and the dialogue gives emotional weight to everything. It's not just about pulling the trigger, it's about what happens afterward. Binary Domain looked like just another shooter, but underneath, it hides one of the most interesting stories of its generation, the kind of game that surprises you when you least expect it. The marketing for Spec Ops The Line made it seem like just another generic shooter in the desert. But after a few hours, it's clear something's deeply wrong with that world. A shattered city, questionable orders, teammates falling apart, everything feels heavy and uncomfortable. And that's exactly why this game stuck with so many people. Gunplay works, it's solid, but that's not the focus. Weapons are just tools, and every fight leaves a mark both on the screen and in your head. Combat is harsh and raw, and slowly the game begins to strip away your assumptions. You start off thinking you're the hero and end up questioning every choice you made. The story is the heart of it all. It breaks down the hero-soldier trope and throws you into a psychological nightmare. With literary references and powerful twists, every decision feels wrong. There are no easy choices. Everything you do carries guilt, pain, and uncertainty. Few games have the guts to confront you like this. Spec Ops. The line isn't about winning, it's about facing what war does to you. A gut punch in the form of a shooter. Dante's Inferno was written off as a God of War clone. A blatant copy, people said. But from the moment you start, it's clear this game has its own soul. Inspired by the Divine Comedy, it throws you straight into hell and not metaphorically. Each circle represents a sin, each enemy a punishment. It's a brutal, disturbing, unforgettable journey. Combat is fast-paced, with brutal finishers, stylish combos, and game-changing magic. You level up skills based on whether you choose to absolve or punish souls. It doesn't just affect gameplay, it shapes the narrative. The pace is relentless, the bosses are epic, and the level design is deeply unsettling. It's a hellish ride you won't forget. The story is simple but powerful. A man seeking redemption, pushing through the horrors of the afterlife to reclaim his humanity. The visuals help immensely grotesque creatures, symbolic landscapes, infernal environments. Even players who don't love hack and slash end up caught in the intensity of the journey. Dante's Inferno may have been born in another game's shadow, but it carved its own path, a criminally underrated classic that deserves a second chance. The Evil Within promised to redefine horror. With the creator of Resident Evil on board, expectations were sky high, but it launched with bugs, unstable performance, and a confusing intro. A lot of people gave up early, thinking it was a mess, but for those who stuck with it, the payoff was a nightmare that only got more twisted as it went. The atmosphere is dense and suffocating. The game shifts locations like it's shifting minds. Everything feels broken, sick, and disturbing. Enemies are grotesque, traps are deadly, and strategy is key: run, hide, save your ammo. It's tense and brutal, but once you get the hang of it, the game shows its true face. The story takes time to make sense, but carries a heavy psychological weight. You start questioning what's real, what's trauma, and what's manipulation. Each level is like a descent into someone's madness, and the fear doesn't come just from the monsters, but from what they represent. This is a game about pain, guilt, and everything the mind tries to bury. The evil within stumbled early, but ends as one of the boldest survival horrors of its generation. It's ugly, weird, and heavy, exactly what horror should be. When Lords of Shadow was revealed, longtime Castlevania fans were skeptical. Fixed camera, hack-and-slash combat, a dark cinematic storyline, it wasn't what they expected. But what looked like heresy turned into a somber epic that took the franchise to another level. A journey that slowly becomes a tale of sacrifice, faith, and damnation. Gameplay is weighty and fluid, with satisfying combos and massive bosses. The visuals are stunning. Ruined castles, cursed forests, and haunted ruins packed with atmosphere. Every area feels emotionally loaded. You feel like you're moving through a broken, ancient world, and every encounter feels more like a ritual than just a fight. The story evolves as you play. What starts as a simple revenge quest grows into something far greater. The twists hit hard, and the final stretch will grip any fan of mythology or fantasy. The epic score and artistic direction add to the feeling that you're playing something truly grand. Lords of Shadow may have strayed from the classic formula, but it found its own path, and it was worth every risk. A tragic, powerful journey that deserved much more recognition. Rage 2 burst in with chaotic energy, but also with big promises it couldn't fully deliver. A shallow story and forgettable characters turned many off, but those who ignored the narrative and focused on the gameplay found one of the wildest FPS experiences of the generation. It's pure chaos. Punches, explosions, and guns that scream madness. Movement is fast. Double jumps, dashes, special powers, and shootouts that make your controller vibrate. The game encourages you to dive headfirst into the mess. Once you lock into that rhythm, it becomes a destruction-fueled spectacle. Blowing everything up while unleashing powers is just addictive. And while the open world is generic, the combat makes up for it. The visuals go all in with colors, effects, and particles. Crumbling cities, radioactive deserts, abandoned labs. It's a shallow world in terms of story, but a blast to run through. Rage 2 doesn't try to be deep. It wants to give you weapons, enemies, and a reason to fill everything with bullets and grenades, and in that, it totally delivers. Rage 2 is like one of those dumb action movies you can't stop watching, because sometimes all you need is to blow stuff up, and in that, it's king. If you made it this far, you already know reviews don't always tell the full story. Some games shine exactly where no one expected. Sometimes, what looks like a failure hides one of the best journeys you'll ever play. So tell me, what's that one game you defended with all your might, or one you still plan to give a chance? Drop it in the comments, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want more hidden gems, click the next video on screen. It's packed with underrated games you need to check out.